Tragedy has struck Broken Anvil Studios in several different ways, in several different aspects, some extremely serious and some just rather disappointing. I'm going to be going over it, giving you guys new information, including stuff from the Attorney General in Washington. So stay tuned for that. Now, before I get started in this video, I do want to give a huge shout out to my sponsor today's video, Into the AM. They have a huge Black Friday sale going on right now, up to 80% off, and I have a discount code in the description that can give you an additional 10% off. This is about as cheap as you can possibly get this stuff, and all of it is fantastic. This is a shirt I'm wearing right now. It just happens to be the one I'm wearing right now. I wear these shirts all the time. They are fantastic. They fit great. They feel great. They are great. You will not be disappointed whether it's for a gift or whether it's a gift to yourself. You're going to love it. They have some fantastic stuff. So as you can see, 80% off, site-wide, huge sale going everywhere. And of course, their new arrivals are on fire. These are great. This one with the back, having him come out there, really, really good. Of course, the Galactic Gamer tee. They have flannel. They have bomber jackets. They got sleeves, hoodies. Their hoodies are so good. Feel great. I could wear that all day. Their fleece joggers, again, awesome. Fantastic stuff. Feel free to check them out. They have a lot here, and again, it's all on sale, and I have that discount code down in the description below. Doing that, of course, helps the channel out, and I thank you so much for it. Treat yourself to some great stuff from Into the AM. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. So here's Broken Anvil Studio Paint. This is going to be the one I'm kind of focusing on, but obviously they did Forged, they did Rivenstone, so they've done a few here, and it's affected a lot of people. And I did a video last time. I'll link down in the description below. It literally was just calling them out for the scam that this ended up being. There was a lot of internal information we got from an ex-employee, acclaimed ex-employee, though they do seem to know what they're talking about. So either they are an ex-employee or they're really good at faking online. Some are. You obviously can take it as you wish. You can watch that video. Again, I did link it down below if you haven't already. For those of you that had, let's go ahead and move on. So what's going on here? Well, they have this really important community update, and I wanted to start on this because I want to focus on something in particular. This says, as some of you are already aware, the world lost Josh Davis a little over 2 weeks ago. This was posted November 15th, so it's been a little bit now. And then they link to a GoFundMe. This is linked down below. It'll actually be the very first link right after the sponsor there. I have to put the sponsor at the top. It's just a general agreement that, you're contractually obliged to, but this is really where I want to point you guys to, if anything. Feel free to support those in need, especially this time of year. I think it's super important. I think it's wonderful that Broken Anvil Studio is using whatever platform they have to get the word out, and I'm doing the same here with this. Seriously, even if you got a positive video, go ahead and do that. Check out the GoFundMe. He left a wife at the very least, and they were together for a while, and you can kind of read about it here. He passed away on October 30th. Just incredibly sad news, of course, and anytime a member of this niche community that we call ourselves it passes away or we lose one, it means a lot. It really does. We're all, when it comes down to it, a pretty tight-knit community, and so I really feel for these people, and hopefully they're able to at least not stress so much about finances for a bit. Like, that's the last thing you need to worry about, right, when you lose somebody. So anyway, they posted this, okay? So this was posted by Broken Anvil Studio as an official update, and then, of course, because it's the internet. So there's this weird thing, right, where I think it's a pinned comment, but the pinned comment here is they canceled their pledge. I have no idea what's going on there. It's like a forced thing, or I've seen some where the account they used for community engagement changed and that did it. Either way, it's not a good look, of course, but when these campaigns last so long, that's what you tend to see. We did, however, see stuff like this. It says, it's sad, I understand, but on this risky Kickstarter, and I have a reason for pointing this out, by the way, campaign, you come to ask for money from a mostly disillusioned community. We all already hope not to have been scammed. I find that very, very inappropriate. And then somebody responded saying, Josh's passing has nothing to do with this campaign, and the only thing inappropriate here is your comment. It's perfectly acceptable for Broken Anvil to reach out to their community for support for Josh's wife. Josh was a huge part of our painting community, and if you can't separate the two from your annoyance of how this campaign has gone, that shows more about your character than theirs. And then go on for a little bit more. I just want to point out, so this is really, I wanted to have this at the beginning. First of all, it's important. I want you guys to see it. But second of all, realize that there are real people involved. In every one of these kind of videos, especially when we're very critical of a company selling product, that company is still made up of individual people with real lives that really matter, that are often very separate from their work lives, right? When I go to work and I do work stuff, I'm doing work stuff. That doesn't reflect on how I'm a father of four, right? That doesn't reflect on my beliefs or what I hold dear to my heart, or my wife and my relationship with her, or my family at large, or my community, or anything like that, right? There's so much more to me than my work. Hopefully that makes sense. And I think most people are like that. So even though he wasn't like super involved in a lot of this negativity anyway, just know that regardless of who we're pointing out, regardless of who we're talking to, be respectful to people, even online. There is a real person behind that, and you got to keep that in mind. There's nobody who would say this to somebody's face, like at a memorial service, right? So if you want to say it there, don't just use the anonymous nature of the internet to say it online. Sadly, that does go for both parts. So we're going to kind of move on from this point. I just wanted to make sure I said that at the beginning, and now we can dive in. Okay. So, and of course they had to clarify. So they're like, hey, but we're not getting money from this. It's going to his grieving wife. Like, come on, guys. It's sad they even had to post that. It really is. So here's the real juice here. Here's the big update. There's a few talking points here. There's definitely some insights here. I'm not going to read this whole thing. That would be a boring video. You guys can do that anyway, right? I will link down to this, obviously, in the description below. I always try to cite my sources so you guys can follow up and do your own investigation and make your own opinion as well-informed as it can be. So, or if nothing else, you know where I got my information. I'm not just showing you a bunch of stuff online and make this up, right? This is real stuff. You can always find the links in the description of my news videos. I think that's very important to do, especially when you're reporting stuff like this. If you see somebody not posting links, please ask for links. Cite your sources. It's important. Okay, so people have been complaining to the Attorney General in Washington, right? In fact, you can see this right here. So this is actually kind of ironic. It says this comment has been removed from Kickstarter. Learn more about common guidelines. And then Matthew here says, also recommend screenshotting all of this and keeping it for the Attorney General in the event you are refunded. Selective refunds to block these kinds of posts should be sufficient enough to have the AG look further into the mess of spam. And of course, there's a selective moderation to remove this image. This is something that happens a lot, and I've seen this happen a lot. In fact, I just recently had a patron that reached out to me and complained because they were fully funded a campaign. They had some questions, had some concerns, but ultimately they wanted to risk it because they were excited about the product. They just wanted to make sure it was a good product. So they'd ask questions, stuff like that. Sometimes some hard questions, for sure. After the campaign ended, they were forced to refund it. So now they can't like comment on it, like it's not in their history anymore. And the comment was like, yeah, we'll let you know when it's retail. Don't worry about it. It's obviously not for you. And so it's like trying to be forcefully nice, but what it does is it hides comments and stuff too. So some creators, not all, some creators will do this specifically to silence your voice or your platform. Often, if that ever happens, please reach out to me. They obviously cannot silence me on my own platform here on this channel, and so they kind of lose a lot of their like power that they're wielding inappropriately there. And just know that not every comment like this happens that way. I can't even tell you that this one is, but it is often very ironic to me that somebody even said, hey, make a screenshot just in case they delete it. And I've seen it happen before. I've had it happen to me before. It does happen. Sometimes these companies, they just don't want you to be there because you're asking questions they don't want to answer. And in fact, they don't even want you to have a voice on it. Now, I'm not saying that happened here, but personal opinion, I feel like that's what happened here. But I can't know for sure. Obviously, none of us can. Okay, so going back onto this, right? So people were reporting them, getting information from the company, getting information from financials, even of like the CEO, people involved here, right? In this case, Chris Trout. And I imagine it was removed because of some form of like quasi-doxing stuff. And there's this weird kind of like issue where people are trying to get information to actually maybe file a lawsuit or something like that, but at the same time you like can't post it online and work together. It's very hard to navigate, and people aren't normally used to being in that position, especially when it comes to posting stuff online. So I think there's some mistakes made there. Okay, so this is a response from the Attorney General. So not only did they look into this, but they even got a response. I'll read the response as well, but this also contains a response that they received from Chris Trout, the CEO of Broken Anvil, and Level 52. So if you've heard of either of those, he was in charge of both. Now, I'm going to read the whole thing here, but I will comment. He mentioned this, an anonymous source, that was the ex-employee, claimed ex-employee that I reported on last time, which we have still not determined is an actual ex-employee, made claims which have now fed YouTubers capitalizing on shocking conclusions to support their ad revenue generating videos. So first of all, if you do something really bad and then people report on something that you did really bad and you're like, dude, you're like making this out to be a big deal. It's like no big deal that we took a whole bunch of money to deliver products. Belittling the issue that people have, which is what this is doing. This is saying essentially, I'm saying it's not as big of a deal as the people reporting on it are. So that's what he doesn't think it's that big of a deal. That's kind of a slap in the face, I feel, to the backers, right? To the people that he took money from and has not delivered to. There's a clear line, you're going to see this throughout, of not only just blaming others, but also just not having an actual connection with consumers. It's something I've hoped to start to bring to this industry a little bit, a kind of a marrying of the two, between the two sides, because creators have their own issues, devs have their own issues that they're honestly dealing with. And then consumers have their own issues that they're honestly dealing with. And I feel like some people get so into the creative space that they're no longer really of the mindset of a consumer and what it's like just to actually buy stuff and want to get stuff. They're so focused on making things and running a business that they lose sight of the consumer viewpoint in it. So I'm hoping to kind of marry those two together on both sides and bring both perspectives to you guys. So hopefully I can do a good job with that. This one in particular, very obviously, is a disconnect where, like, right out of the gate, second paragraph, you're like, it's not that big a deal, right? So that's kind of silly. I will also say this ad revenue generating video is pretty laughable. I've actually been talking with several of the creators because I'm going to be doing a video, and I've been planning this for months, by the way. And in fact, they could even speak up and say, yeah, he spoke to me a while back. Trying to show how little money is involved in this niche thing, right? What we cover, crowdfunded board games specifically, right? Or crowdfunded efforts like this is incredibly niche. It's a niche of an entirely niche genre or industry, right? Not only is it not all board gamers are going to watch this, but only the people very interested in crowdfunded board games enough to watch a YouTube video are going to watch this. It's a very vertical slice, a very small slice, and it's why it's so community run. It's why everybody's running a Patreon. It's why we need sponsors like Into the AM to actually help support this, because otherwise the ad revenue is laughable. I can tell you right now, covering any kind of indie typically nets me about $10 to $20. Now I'm going to have a whole video on that, but trust me, that's not worth the hours of effort you put into the video. It's kind of silly. In fact, he says right here, one doesn't get into this type of industry or line of work for money. And he's very true. The problem is he's trying to only apply it to him and not to everybody else. This ad revenue thing, like we're like PewDiePie with our Lamborghinis or some junk like that, like it's just silly. Nobody here's Mr. Beast. Nobody here's making a ton of money. The same with the devs. You can make a good life for yourself being a really great developer of great games that people love and enjoy and running your business smartly. Of course you can. But then you're not rolling around making bank. There are easier ways and to make money. Board games are expensive to make just inherently, right? If nothing else, you go to the software thing for that, right? He even answers it himself, right? This industry is not made of a whole bunch of super rich people. And the people doing it, whether they're making videos, whether they're covering news, whether they're trying to help inform consumers about things, or whether they're making things for those consumers to buy, nobody is in this just to make a quick buck. That's just not how this works. So yeah, no, that's, again, shifting blame. And you'll see it here. Not only are they making shocking conclusions to support their ad revenue generating videos, those videos are fueling unbelievable hostility toward me. Now, I, of course, covered it my way, and I like to think I've done a much better job recently of reporting on these things and being responsible for it and keeping the humanity. Already sharing that GoFundMe is part of that effort. Okay, because it is important not to build these outrage. While things can be bad, that doesn't mean you want to just hype up a hate train, right, on people. You don't want people getting swatted or abused or harassed, regardless, right? That's not how this works, right? Now, I don't know about other creators, so perhaps there's not. I tend not to watch them. A lot of them that I've seen, there's a few in particular, are still very negative and are still very hateful and just a very bitter experience watching a lot of their videos. And that's why I don't like that. I want to enjoy my hobby, but I also want my hobby to be better. So I try to balance those two in videos like this. Maybe that's the case. So I'm only speaking from my video. But regardless, if you didn't do it, it wouldn't be an issue to begin with. In other words, if he hadn't done it, it's like somebody murdering someone. No, I know he's not murdering. I know that's right. You go to the extreme example, right? So it's like committing a crime and then seeing people report on that crime and be like, that's why people hate me. It's like, no, I mean, if you helped the old lady cross the road and unload her groceries into her truck and then gave her $100 because you're a generous person, like, nobody's going to report negatively on that. Like, that's not going to bring hatred. The hatred was caused by Chris Trout and how he ran the business and what the business situation is in. And it has nothing to do with other people. That's not the fault. The fault isn't the YouTubers reporting on what you did. It's because of what you did. Okay, so it is unfortunate to see that. That being said, with people literally wishing death upon me. Come on, guys. I know you guys aren't. You are an amazing community, and I love the fact that I'm part of a member of your community, that we can just kind of really want this industry to be the best it can be. So no, none of you are doing that, obviously. But there are people out there that will, and it's unfortunate. We obviously need to do that. We also need to call out bad behavior when it happens, right? It's why I pointed out like this exchange here, right? Because whether it's bad behavior from a consumer or it's bad behavior from a developer, you don't want to be the person that sees bad behavior and chooses to remain silent by it. We can forge a better community by calling out bad behavior like that. It doesn't have to be negative or aggressive or angry or anything like that, but we have to make sure that we do not stand for this kind of behavior from either side. There should be no death threats. That's just silly. These are board games. Regardless of the theft or the money owned, theft doesn't have... the result of theft doesn't involve the death penalty, okay? Nobody deserves to die because they took some money and didn't deliver something for you. Should they be punished? Probably, I think so. Now, it depends on the situation stuff. There are unfortunate problems that happen, right? But regardless, nobody needs to be dying for this. Nobody needs to be wishing someone, a human being, to die because of that. It's just silly. So yeah, that's sad. But let's keep going. He mentions that each project, and remember, this is him responding to the Attorney General, right? He says each project discloses that there are no refunds and that there are risks involved. The risk of complications is inherent and accepted by participants. This is a big point. Those who can't stomach the risk should be putting their money into established product lines and local retailers, not Kickstarter projects. In other words, he's saying it's your guys' fault. It's your dumb fault for doing it, you idiots. If you're not cool with me not delivering the product, you should have put money in there, dummy. Like, this sort of like, I understand I'm adding dummy, but that's what he's saying is like, if you're not okay with it, don't put your money there. You know, it pretty much reads with a duh at the end. It's ridiculous, that kind of attitude to have towards someone, especially somebody that you took their money from and didn't deliver anything for, regardless of the reason. You should feel bad for that. Now, he does say, I apologize and that I accept your anger, but the accepting the anger is full of all of these excuses and all of this belittling of the issue and all of the blame game. And it's just so sad to see this. It really, really is. He could have spent... I'll point this out. Here's an update that they wrote, right? Where they actually show, hey, look, COCast molds, like we're doing stuff, right? Now, this is not a whole lot of work, obviously. As he said before, he doesn't have the staff for it anymore, right? So like, it's up to you if this is enough or not. But he could have responded to the Attorney General showing the work he's done, saying, I am still trying to do it. I understand they're upset and they're complaining to you about it now, but I am working on it. Here's proof. But he did not. His initial go-to response, his chosen choice of rebuttal was just, it's not a big deal. Other people are making a big deal and it's their fault anyway. Those are the 3 points he makes in this. Not I'm working hard on it, I'm trying or anything like that. He mentions it briefly, but the vast majority of this, and you can read it as well, is saying it's not a big deal. They need to calm down. And again, it's just frustrating to see somebody respond that way to this. It really is. Additionally, he's of course not telling the whole truth here, right? In fact, he even says, as clearly stated in the campaign, the window for refunds are closed. In other words, we gave the refunds, but we said, hey, this is risky anyway. Like every Kickstarter has this, discloses this, right? Every project discloses this, right? That there are no refunds and that there are risks involved. They chose to make this risk. So let's go and read their risks and see exactly what he said. Because it's right here. Refund policy. Refunds requested 21 days after the campaign closed cannot be granted as manufacturing will be underway. It's unfortunate that he added that clarification because obviously that didn't end up being happening. In other words, the reason for this didn't ever happen. But either way, he's saying, hey, you got 21 days, and afterwards, we can't because we're already making it. Now, he didn't end up making it for a long, long time, and it's still debatable on how much they're making it now. But this is what they said. Should Broken Anvil Miniatures be unable to deliver a reward item for any reason, backers will receive a full refund for the item's value. Now, this is worded very carefully. Notice there is no time limit on this. It could be 70 years from now. It could be a millennia later. And they're like, we might still deliver, so no refunds, right? Like, of course, that's silly. But what you need to look at is what their messaging is, what the feel is that they're giving, right? And in fact, it goes on from here too. Let's look at their risks and challenges. Our team has spent the last 18 months working on manufactured product that has produced high quality paints for nearly a century in the United Kingdom. We've ironed out all the details of the manufacturing process down to the bottles, agitators, and labels. The only major risk, this is what they're saying the risk is for this campaign, is that if our product is exposed to extreme temperatures, which by the way, their latest one said we're going to ship it in the cold, don't worry, it's fine. And we mean even hot or subarctic cold extreme. So that's the set. It's not going to be that cold. It may damage the paint and shipping. That is the only risk. And it says there are always unknown risks, but we are very confident our experience in product manufacturing will allow us to navigate most issues efficiently. They go out of their way to say, don't worry, if we can't deliver it, you will get refunded. And they go out of their way to say, hey, we got this down. We are pros at this, and there's not really any major risk. So they then go to the AG of Washington and say that actually it's their fault for backing it. They knew it was risky. Is such two-faced attitude. It's such a two-faced thing to do. I imagine it's kind of weird because I would think he would have assumed this wasn't going to be shared. But at the same time, he says like to those who are like, he's responding to us. Did he actually think we should read this and be like, oh yeah, no, never mind. You're right. It's not a big deal. And you're right. I mean, I know I read that you said, hey, we got this and that there's only one major risk and everything else you should be able to handle and that I'll get a refund if you can't deliver it. But now that you mentioned this, you're right. I should have assumed it was a super risky endeavor, and I should have known about your desperate financial situation afterwards that you kept secret and all this other stuff that I explained in my previous video. Thank you for saying this. Like, nobody's going to respond that way. This is crazy town. Ridiculous. It's unfortunate. So, as you saw here, they are doing some work. Like, they are working on it. I believe him when I hear that he's trying to deliver it. I do. I honestly do. Because you could just walk away. The board game part of Kickstarter, or the board game crowdfunding scene, I guess I should say, is so much better. In fact, he mentions here, and I didn't highlight it here, but he does mention it, that the Kickstarter website says that its success rate of projects is 40%. And I'm sure if you have backed any amount of Kickstarter board games, or even GameFound board games at this point now that it's kind of branched off, is so much higher than 40%. The vast majority of these actually deliver, which is important to keep in mind too, but it also means that we are in a very good state with this industry when it comes to actually like trusting in campaigns. When something like this is the exception to the rule. If you go to the video game side of things or the electronic gadget side of things, it's far, far less. The average is 40. They're probably lower than 40, in my opinion. I mean, really, really low. More often than not, you ain't getting that game. You ain't getting that gadget. You're never going to hear from them again. It happens all the time. Sadly, it's a big thing. Not so much here, but you could do that. You could just say, oh, sorry, can't do it. File bankruptcy. A good thing it was an LLC or something like that, so I'm not liable, and then walk off and live your life doing something else. If anybody is here still trying, I do believe that they are still trying. I think it's actually a legitimate thing. I'm sure he is. Is this enough? Is this enough for you? Are you happy with this? Should he be offering like refunds if it's this late? Of course, as he points out, if I give people refunds, then we definitely can't make it because obviously I need the money, right? To be able to make things. That's what the Kickstarter was originally for. It's a mess. It's a mess. It's unfortunate. But I hate to see a developer that is when I put tragedy on the main like thumbnail and stuff like that of this video, which is my idea. I haven't made it yet, but It's twofold. Of course, it's for the loss of life. It's such an unfortunate thing, right? Again, that GoFundMe is linked down below. Feel free to help the family out, especially in the holiday season. They shouldn't have to deal with money issues if you just lost your husband. I mean, it's terrible. A terrible loss for the industry and the community that we have here. But it's also tragic that you have a CEO that would rather blame YouTubers reporting on his bad dealings than his bad dealings. That says it's not a big deal and that it's the backer's fault. That they should have never backed in the first place and they shouldn't have given you money. They should have known that he might take it and not deliver it. Super unfortunate to have that kind of attitude. It's tragic. It's tragic that he went so far to do it. You know, we see these games like Mythic Games and all these other campaigns that kept going and kept the lie going so long that they affected so many people. The first time you mess up, you need to mention it. You need to talk about it. Because if you perpetuate it, it just grows worse and you hurt more people. It doesn't just magically get better. It's not how that works. And it didn't for them, and of course it didn't. At some point, you're going to have a fluke, and at some point, cards come tumbling down. All right, that's it. That's all I had. I know it's not a fun video, of course, but I think it's an important one. Show respect online to others. Show respect to your backers if you're a developer. And if you're a backer, realize that there are actual real people with real lives that far exceed the limited view you see of them online doing their business. So just keep that in mind as you navigate this. Guys, have a great rest of your holiday season. Again, these shirts, they're freaking awesome. Go check them out. Into the AM, 80% off, plus another 10% with my code. Use it down below. It goes on top of the sale. You're going to love it. I promise. All right, take care, guys.